Thank you, Mr. President. We recorded that in the Oval last week when I was there visiting my old boss, who's my new boss again. But don't worry, I get so many texts I had to answer. My inbox was full this weekend. I'm not going anywhere. The radio show is staying. I'm going to be here 3 hours a day for you guys to fight the good fight. And, God willing, serving on the President's National Security Education Board. So it's okay. We must continue to fight the good fight on all fronts, including the deep state, the corruption of the deep state. And there's one organization that battles every single day on behalf of you. They're the incredible people of Judicial Watch, judicialwatch.org. Support them, donate to them, and listen to what this man has to say. He's in charge of their investigations, former military counterintelligence, is that the correct thing? Yep. Counterintelligence officer Chris Farrell. You have been tweeting up a storm. You have been doing some incredible work, as always. One story that's at the top of your Twitter feed as of this morning is the unmasking story. In my opinion, this remains one of the biggest stories that hasn't received requisite coverage, even in the conservative non-legacy media. Would you take a moment to explain to our viewers and our listeners what is unmasking and what is the unmasking scandal, Chris?
Sure. So, safe to say that our intelligence services, in particular the NSA, the National Security Agency, is capable of vacuuming up virtually every electron out there. And that's not really an exaggeration.
There's that massive data storage facility, in Arizona? Or
Utah.
Utah, that's huge. Yeah. I mean, allegedly, I did an article on this. That one facility can store 6 times the amount of data equivalent to every human spoken word since the beginning of language. 6 times.
Right.
It's a lot of data. It's a lot of data.
So just figure that every electron out there is being vacuumed up. So the people that say, oh, my privacy or my phone call or I don't want to burst anyone's bubble, but if they're really concerned about their privacy, I mean, you can make it easier or you can make it harder for your level of security. But
you use two cans with string, right? That's the best encryption out there, right?
Yeah. There's an enormous capability, technical capability on the part of our intelligence services, and particularly the NSA, to gain sort of communications intelligence, signals intelligence. And so they do that, and they do it, and they're not interested in, what you're getting at the supermarket when your spouse texts you, pick up milk. They really don't care. What they are looking for is patterns of communication between various nodes and cells, frequency of communication, the type of communication, the media, like frequencies. There's all sorts of things, a technical analysis of communications that occurs. And bad guys do certain things that make them...
patterns of life issues.
That make them more visible. Now, that being said, if someone has larceny in their heart, if they're a bad guy, and they really want to drill down on what you are saying or doing, and this is the Obama administration deluxe, right? They will go and look at Seb Gorka's phone calls and text messages and emails, and they have the capability of not just reading every single one of them, but also where you were when you typed that text message or email. Some would even speculate that they would be able to see your first draft and then what you changed and what you finally sent. So there's an enormous capability. All right.
And in usual times, when we have governments that function correctly, there should be some protections against that.
Correct. And that's why they had this idea of this sort of anonymizing all that data, except when they need to find bad actors. So we're talking about terrorists, about states that are engaged in provocative activities that we're looking for, indications and warnings. Bad guys move certain units or do certain activities that raise our threat level or our watch on them. But instead of this very sort of grave national security military question, instead they're taking that and they're applying it to their political opponents.
Right. So political intelligence for domestic purposes.
Correct. And all of that is unlawful. And so you have someone like Samantha Power, who is the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. What she has to do with counterintelligence and law enforcement, I can't begin to even imagine what she has to. But she had something like 260 or more unmasking requests, and she says, "Oh no, I didn't do it. My staff did." Well,
but let's explain what the unmasking request is. So an American name, U.S. citizen,
right,
pops up in one of these big nets of intelligence gathering.
Correct.
And usually, because the U.S. person, not a foreign agent, that name is anonymized.
Correct.
And the unmasking is the request by a senior official to say, "Hey, whose name is that?"
Right, and who else are they communicating with, and what did they say? And it starts to spider web out, because in these sorts of things, particularly people will think of FISA warrants where there's a two-hop thing with this. Okay, here's the target,
and the next
I can look at the next person, and then that person who they spoke to. And so when you unmask somebody, you say, "Oh, so this guy made a phone call overseas," and it can be just that innocuous too. He called the UK or he called Germany. Okay. Well, then it becomes the specific identification by name of an American and what they were doing or saying or talking. And so when you have the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations making 260 plus requests for purely political reasons to identify opponents or oppositions.
Who, by the way, was a donor, wasn't a career diplomat.
Correct.
The Obama ambassador to Rome was just some guy that dropped $1 million and got that position, and he's unmasking.
Correct. Exactly. And when they do this, the identities of the U.S. citizens show up, of course, and then all their communications and contacts. And so it's an enormously invasive thing. And unless you have some real, either legit national intelligence, do you think there's going to be some sort of a terrorist attack or some real espionage or subversion? I mean, a real crime, not "I don't like you," but a real crime.
Right.
You have no business doing that, and they've done it over and over and over.
We are talking to Chris Farrell of Judicial Watch. Follow them on Twitter at Judicial Watch. Support them at judicialwatch.org. I'm Sebastian Gorka. This is America.
Do you ever worry about your retirement? Will your funds grow over time, and will they be there when you really need them? Don't bet all of your retirement on a risky stock market or a crashing dollar. My friends at Midas Gold Group can show you how to add the safety and stability of physical gold and silver to your existing IRA or old 401k. The process is simple and tax-free. Do what I did. Discover how Midas Gold can bring you financial security today.
Making sense out of today's news, here's Dr. Sebastian Gorka.
We've kept him over because the topic is that important. He's Chris Farrell, in charge of investigations at that great organization, Judicial Watch, fighting for you and the principles of transparent government. In the last few minutes we have with you, Chris, the people love it. It's this theme, Watergate. Watergate is this massive kind of mythological thing in our history. Can you compare what I like to call Obamagate with Watergate in terms of relative significance?
Yeah. You know how in the Richter scale, every increase in notch of the severity of the earthquake is not just one level.
No, it's exponential.
Right. And this is a Richter scale exponential increase. Watergate is Keystone Cops versus Obamagate, which is an extremely sophisticated criminal conspiracy. And
because we're talking about a bungled burglary and a shoddy cover-up.
Right.
And in Obamagate, there's just so many things.
Yes. I mean,
there's a multitude and agencies.
And very, very senior leaders, people like Brennan and Comey. I mean, the head of the FBI, the head of the CIA,
NSA contractors.
Yes, very, very senior folks who are deliberately set out on a scheme to do an end run around all the laws and regulations concerning the undisclosed participation in U.S. organizations in the United States. They know they're committing a crime, so they manufacture a phony end run to justify it. And then we see panicky emails between Strzok and Page in the days leading up to the inauguration, where they have this guilty knowledge of what they've done, and they know that a new guy's coming in, and they're terrified of General Flynn.
Yes.
Terrified, because they know that once Flynn gets briefed on what they've been doing, he's going to pull the string and the whole thing is going to unwind. And that's why they went after Flynn General Flynn was very dangerous because of his knowledgeability. He knew the intelligence and law
Right.
enforcement
Director
for
of DIA.
35 years.
Right.
They're not going to throw a fastball past him. He's going to hit it out of the park. So they have got to eliminate him. This is all part and parcel of the saga.
In the last few seconds we have with you, Chris Farrell from Judicial Watch. A lot of people worried about the election and whether or
They should
not,
be.
the U.S. Attorney Durham is going to make those indictments this weekend. Mark Meadows made some statements to expect indictments. Has that reassured you?
No, it really hasn't.
Okay.
I mean, I hope it's true. I hope that the action is forthcoming, but I haven't seen evidence of it. I want to believe, Lord, I believe, help my disbelief, I want to believe, but, proof is in the pudding. And when I see grand juries impaneled and indictments handed down, then I'll go, aha, someone's actually doing something.
Justice must be done, and justice must be seen to be done inside of the next 105 days. I'm Sebastian Gorka. This is America First on the Salem Radio Network, live streaming on YouTube, on Facebook, available on Instagram TV. Support this man and his organization with Tom Fidden. It's judicialwatch.org. Follow them at Judicial Watch. This has been America First. Stay frosty, my friends.